Issue 26. Living Green. The human population of the planet has kept doubling every few decades for about 200 years now. This has caused a diminution of everything that humans use and an increase in pollution. People who live in relatively simple societies with relatively stable population sizes still suffer from the age-old scourges of ignorance, poverty, and illness. But the move into modern societies with more educational opportunities, higher standards of living, and better medical care is the root cause of our environmental problems. Tropical forests are disappearing, desertification is expanding, and farmland is being transformed into highways, airports, and housing developments. As habitats disappear, so does wildlife. Species become extinct and threatened. Overfishing means the loss of a major supply of food. Our energy demands keep expanding as our lifestyles become more comfortable. But industrialization and reliance on fossil fuels poison our air and water, causing not only serious long-term medical problems, but also profound climate change. Although these changes are ongoing, the rate of change is rapidly accelerating to the extent that they are not only observable by specialists studying scientific data, but even by ordinary people. However, so far, very little is being done to address any of the problems in any effective, meaningful way. Governments are slow to act, if they act at all. Businesses continue to resist change, and people decline to make any sacrifices in their personal habits. Instead of walking a single block to the local store or riding a bicycle, we continue to get in our automobile to drive there. On our way, we casually litter the roadways with no thought of the mess we make. All the way there and back, we worry about how much weight we are gaining and how expensive fuel is, while we complain about how ugly the environment is and about how nobody is doing anything about it. What does it mean? 1. People who live in relatively simple societies. 2. Very little is being done to address any of the problems. Comprehension. 1. What are some of the results of human population growth? 2. How do we know about these environmental changes? 3. What are we doing to improve the situation?
Teen Talk. One, do you think we are trying our best to save the Earth? Why or why not? 2. Some people are keen on environmental issues, while others are not. In what ways do they differ? 3. Do you ever feel guilty when you do not meet your green responsibilities? Why or why not? 4. After finishing a drink, do you always properly recycle the empty can or bottle? Why or why not? 5. Do you try to save water when you take a shower or bath? If so, how? If not, why not? 6. Do you always turn your TV or computer off when it is not in use? 7. Since livestock are estimated to produce 2/3 more greenhouse emissions than passenger cars, are you willing to eat less meat if it would help the planet? 8. Are you willing to try to persuade your parents to drive a compact car instead of a big gas guzzler? How would your parents react? 9. The government insists that the tap water in your home is safe to drink. Do you believe that? Why or why not?
Opinion samples. 1. People have their own independent views of the world. Some are keenly interested in finance, others are economically clueless. Some folks intensely follow sports, others are entirely indifferent. The same disparity occurs over environmental issues, even though all of us have to live in the same habitat. A few people see environmental change as a doomsday mechanism and are determined to reverse the situation before it is too late. Others recognize the problem but are apathetic about it, either because they don't sense its immediacy or because they are pessimistic about affecting policy. Still others insist that the problem does not even exist. Questions. 1. Is climate change a genuine phenomenon? Can anything be done about it? 2. As far as you know, what are the reasons people give for rejecting global warming as a man-made development?
Opinion Samples 2. The bottled water industry is a scam. Somehow the public has become so convinced that the water in their homes is not safe to drink that they are willing to pay an exorbitant price for the same thing in a plastic bottle. Cities spend a lot of money installing water purification systems and are constantly testing the product to make sure it contains no harmful microbes or other dangerous substances. And then they make this water available to everyone at almost no cost. Many cities even fluoridate the water to combat tooth decay, saving consumers significant dental expenses every year. But then these same consumers ignore their free, healthy water and buy bottles of the substance, even though tests routinely demonstrate that there is no difference in water quality. Questions. 1. In what way is the bottled water industry a scam? 2. Briefly present a justification for bottled water.
Dialogue. If there is a big storm, a typhoon or earthquake, for example, who has the most responsibility for rebuilding, the government or the individual?
There isn't much an individual can do. He or she would be emotionally in bad shape and without the physical or financial means to rebuild. It seems to me that only the government would have the resources to do anything positive.
That would be the same case for a flood.
Sure, of course.
What if someone lived on a floodplain, an area that has a history of repeated flooding? Should the government be responsible for rebuilding every time, or should the individual take initial responsibility and move somewhere else that is safer?
It doesn't seem very smart to live somewhere that is obviously so hazardous. Maybe the government should ban anyone from living there.
Probably hundreds of families would have to move. Relocation would be expensive, and many people don't have enough money to buy a new home. So it would be up to the government to provide all the money to cover the cost involved?
It would be a lot, I guess, but it would be a one-time investment. In the long run, it would be a lot cheaper than refinancing rebuilding all the time.
What about on a smaller scale? What about matters of individual health?
What do you mean?
Should a person be entirely responsible for bad choices? If you smoke, for example, and get lung cancer, are you on your own? Should government-provided health care be available to you? Are we all responsible for treating you, since it is our taxes that would pay for health care?
The government should try to educate us to make good choices, but it can't really keep us from doing whatever we want. Even if the government bans tobacco products, people will still find some way of obtaining them.
So a determined smoker gets lung cancer after repeatedly breaking the law. Does society still have any responsibility for providing care?
Lots of non-smokers get lung cancer too, so if the government helps them, it should help everyone. But it could still enforce penalties, like fines or prison time, on people who violate the law.
Should the government require everyone to buy insurance?
I guess it can do so if it doesn't want to use taxes to provide health care itself.
Then can it force everyone to eat only healthy food, get plenty of exercise, and avoid bad habits?
It can try to, but such laws are always hard to enforce. However, I don't think the government can abandon its responsibility to take care of its people to the extent it can do so.
Are you saying that a government is like a parent that has to feed and educate and protect and love its citizens even when they are bad?
I think so. Yes.
What about making sure all people have designer clothes and cosmetic surgery to improve their looks?
I guess not. It would be too expensive, and these things are not necessary. They're nice, but we can live without them. But I think the government should try to make sure that everyone has enough to eat and a place to live and clothes to wear. Everyone should be able to go to school and have health care available. The government should try to get rid of poverty and discrimination. But individuals still have to make many decisions on their own.
Do you think the government should tell you whom you should marry or what profession you should enter or how many children you should have?
I know some societies do those things, and that they think they have good reasons to do so, but I think that's going too far.
Well, I can tell you've thought about this a great deal, even though I don't agree with all your answers.
Questions. 1. Is it possible to have rights but not have responsibility? 2. Do you think you should have to pay for other people's bad choices, or should they be entirely responsible for their own actions? 3. Can the government make moral choices on your behalf?
Read and discuss. Atomic energy, cheap, green, and deadly. Nuclear energy was once hailed as the answer to the world's power needs. It is relatively cheap to produce and causes no pollution. Even so, opponents have long insisted it has many drawbacks, especially the terrible potential effects of radiation in case of an accident. A nuclear scare occurred at 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania, but the operators were able to prevent any serious radiation leak. The operators of the Chernobyl plant were not as lucky, however, and a massive radiation leak continues to cause death and disease through much of Eastern Europe. Even more recently, an earthquake and tsunami devastated a nuclear energy facility in northern Japan, threatening that nation and its neighbors as well. Champions of nuclear energy continue to claim that it is safe, as shown even in the worst scenarios, and insist that the gains far outweigh the risks. But many people, and even several governments that had been strongly pro-nuclear, seem to be having second thoughts. It seems unlikely that any new nuclear plants will be operating anytime soon. Questions. 1. What are the advantages of nuclear energy? What are its disadvantages? 2. When the Japanese nuclear event was unfolding, do you remember your reactions? Describe them to the class. 3. What is your opinion about the continued use of nuclear energy? Should it be abandoned? Expanded? Pictures talk. One. Questions. 1. What are the main causes of water pollution? What can be done about it? 2. Which do you drink? Free tap water or expensive bottled water? Why? 3. Talk about ways in which water is regularly being wasted and how they can be prevented.
2. Questions. 1. What causes air pollution? List as many culprits as possible. 2. Urban people don't seem to worry much about the quality of the air they breathe. Do you think the air in your neighborhood is okay? 3. Do you think people would buy clean air canisters like they buy bottles of mineral water?
What's your advice? 1. I care about the earth. It's the only home we have, and we have to share it with thousands of other kinds of plants and animals. I do everything I can to help protect it. I don't litter. I pick up other people's trash. I carefully recycle all our family garbage. I limit my use of electric and electronic devices and don't leave the lights or water on when they are not in use. I actively support companies and activities that promote green products. But all around me, I see my friends and many adults doing their best to defeat my efforts. They just don't care. I'm about ready to give up. It's useless for me to try to do anything useful in this regard if nobody else is willing to help me. Does anyone have any advice or encouragement for me before it is too late?
2. What's all the fuss? We are no longer cavemen, and we live in very technologically advanced times. Every year, we know more and more about our planet and its atmosphere. We figure out more and more about atomic physics. Our knowledge of medicine, biology, and chemistry continues to grow. I just can't believe that there is any physical problem we can't solve if it's important enough to devote sufficient resources toward its solution. Do you agree with me, or do you just think I'm being naive? Please try to provide a thorough explanation of why you think so.